vulnerability can be a really powerful tool, but of course, it has to be done in the right way. I give an example about a client of mine who was the director of a large IT division, and they had been preparing for a long, long time this huge international event, and COVID struck. And of course, this international in-person event had to be cancelled very quickly. And everybody was so despondent. Everybody was so unhappy. And the director got everybody together. First of all, he asked them how they were feeling, which was wonderful, to take the pulse and to check out how they were feeling. But then he shared with them the fact that he too was sad. And he shared with them the fact that for him, it was also frustrating. And that's a bit of vulnerability there. But then he went on to say, yes, this is a difficult moment, but let's not forget, we have another event to look forward to in a few months, which will be virtual. And we need to prepare for that and make sure that it's as good as possible. And so what he was doing there was actually selective vulnerability. So he was both showing how he was feeling, which helps the people to connect to him and respect, of course, there's a mutual respect that goes there. But at the same time, he was steering them on, and he was showing that he still was in charge. And I think that's a skill.
Just so we know, what's that? Yeah. I'd love to talk about what is the definition of psychological safety, because it is talked a lot about, and just want to make sure we've nailed down
Do you know what? There are so many different definitions, and I often get asked this, and so I come at it from my angle, But I think it's generally accepted that it's the ability to offer an idea, disagree, voice an opinion, express one's feelings without fear of being judged or reprimanded for doing so. I think that is, for me, that's maybe the shorthand way, but that's
I like that.
It is. Yeah. You need to create this emotionally safe team. And so there are various things you can do. Obviously, we've talked about vulnerability. The leader can demonstrate vulnerability. That's one way. But another thing is to do things, for example, when you check in with your team, when you ask them, how are you? Perhaps it's a one-to-one, perhaps it's at the beginning of a team meeting, but just checking in and taking the emotional pulse is a great way to show that you care and that it's okay to talk about how you feel. So that's one way of doing it. And I always encourage leaders to say, are you checking in? Particularly remotely, people forget to do that nowadays. They think, they don't realize that it's an added responsibility when you're working remotely.
Yeah. You mentioned empathy a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
And how important do you feel that is for leaders?
Huge, absolutely fundamental. There've been a lot of surveys done that show that those companies that have empathetic cultures and empathetic leaders are constantly outperforming those companies that don't. And the same in terms of building trust and having, good leadership. Empathy is really important. And empathy also is a great way to get accountability as well. It's not always easy to get accountability.
In what way? In what way?
In what way? Well, if you just say do this, or if you don't do this, then there'll be trouble, or I expect you to deliver this now, tomorrow, whatever. People might not always react to that in the right way. They might not necessarily want to do that. They might not feel motivated to do that. But if you approach it from an empathetic perspective, bosses who are empathetic, you find, and research shows this, that they will automatically get more accountability. So they're not independent of each other. They can actually work very well together. I think a lot of people overestimate how empathetic they are. There have been quite a few studies done where people
overestimate.
Yeah, they overestimate. Often I think, are you empathetic? Oh, yes. But actually, surveys show, and there's one survey I talk about in my book where, they asked the leaders of an organization if they were empathetic. I think 95% of them said they were empathetic. And then they surveyed the rest of the organization. There was, quite a gap. I think it was something like 70% or something. There's a 25% gap. So people overestimate it. It's really very important. Talking about some sort of conflict, aren't you?
Conflict, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, this happens a lot because conflict is normal at work. I mean, I would say it's a healthy thing. I think the way to navigate it is to navigate it with emotional intelligence. So it's really important for each party to first assess their own emotions. So how are you feeling about this, right? What's going on with you? So before you have, if you're going to have a conversation, you can prepare for that conversation. You can prepare for a conversation that's going to happen. You know, if you're feeling upset or frustrated or sad or whatever, analyze and think about what's going on for you. And then also at the same time, think about how the other person might be feeling. So again, you're using this empathy to put yourself in the shoes of the other person. And then when you approach a conversation like that, if you approach it from a place of, oh my God, this is going to be awful, or it's going to be tense again, or whatever, you've already lost. You've lost already. So you have to say, this is a conversation. We don't really agree at the moment, but there's an opportunity here for us to work together and to try and listen to each other's perspectives. And maybe we're not going to agree yet, but maybe it's one conversation on the step to agreeing. Right?